Special Report.
Miracles are one of the strangest things in existence.
Neil Armstrong may have seen extraterrestrials on the moon.
When he spies a discernible shape.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there. And no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Welcome everybody to Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yax, and man, oh man, we got a great show for you today. This is an amazing person we've brought on. She is a national and international paranormal investigator. She is also an innovator. She is also an acclaimed author. She has dealt with paranormal just about her whole life, and we're going to get into a lot of different topics today. It's going to be quite incredible. So, let's get into it. My guest today is Shannon Sylvia. So let's bring her in. Hi, Shannon. How are you?
Hi, Rob. How are you? I'm well.
Great. Thank you for being here. It's so amazing. If anybody doesn't know who she is, I'm sure you've seen her on TV. She's quite amazing. She's been on the Discovery Channel. She's been on Travel Channel. She's been on A&E. She's been on Sci-Fi. She's also done a bunch of conventions around all of the United States and probably further. So, Shannon, why don't you tell the people about yourself a little bit?
I don't have to. You just did.
I did.
Well, I come from the Boston area, and I grew up in a haunted house when I was a kid and had a fascination with the paranormal ever since. And never knew in a million years that I'd be joining a team that would take me into their group, teach me everything I know, and then take it a next step further and be invited to be part of such an amazing crew in paranormal investigating in Europe for television. And, it's like hitting the lottery, and this stuff just never happens to me. I never really had much luck, but, one door opens, another one closes. So many great things have happened in my life ever since television. And it's been an interesting road. Like you said, I wrote a book, and I'd like to write another. I do think I'd like to write another. I'm working on a screenplay for a Hollywood horror movie. And
that's awesome.
My brother-in-law is a director in LA, so we have some connections there. And I moved out of my hometown finally 4 years ago into the country near New Hampshire. So I can't complain. It's really kind of cool out here. It's nice and quiet. Nobody knew me in this town for a little while anyway. And I just do my thing. We're just trying to get through COVID as you all are. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Lockdown has been really terrible in many ways, but great in others. I mean, I wouldn't have this show if it wasn't for lockdown itself. It gave me the time to really focus on this kind of stuff. So, projects are really great to achieve them and place them and really go through it properly with, the time allotted. But definitely want to get back out there too. But, I'm a fan of Ghost Hunters International. So, I've always been a fan, and it's surreal to have you here right now because it's exceptional. You think about doing a show and you get guests on, and then you get a guest like yourself, and it's like, oh wow, we're getting a little bit of traction that she would want to come on. It's really cool. So now we've explained that you've had a lot of paranormal activity in your life. So for everybody that doesn't know you like I do, let's start right at the beginning and the first moments that this happened to you. Explain to us exactly what happened, how it felt, and things like that. Let's run through your timeline if you let us.
It's pretty crazy. My earliest memories are lots of nightmares running to my mom. Like kids have all the time. But growing up, my parents are extremely religious. They were very involved in the church. They sang in the church in the band on Sundays in front of the church. They made me sing in front of the church starting at 2 years old, which pretty much footed my complete fear of audiences and stage fright issues. But very, very religious. And from an early age, things started happening around me. And we don't know why. My mother was very, very open to it. She knew that the things were happening. I ran to her. I had a Raggedy Ann doll, a big one, and ran to her screaming bloody murder, saying to her that my dolly made a bad face at me. And my mother wanted to bring me back to the bedroom to reassure me that there was no bad face, and I wouldn't even step in that room. I was, I think, 3 at the time when this happened. And
Wow.
I was so fearful to even go look at it again. So my mother had to get rid of the doll. And, from there, it was just stuff all the time, footsteps coming up from the basement, voices, things disappearing. I mean, really disappearing. Not even, I mean, fish disappearing out of my fish tank, that they weren't eaten by other fish. Just things disappearing all the time. Entire outfits. I'm one of those people that lays out my clothes the night before for my day, and I wake up in the morning, clothes are gone. Like never found that outfit again. Just disappearing
Wow.
all the time. Oh yeah, it was my first day of school. I got a brand new outfit. I was all excited to wear it. Never saw it again. Never saw it again. And even after I moved out of there, we didn't come across any clothes laying around. And um, you know, stuff that you can't talk to your friends about in a very small Catholic school in a class of 12 kids. You can't tell your friends that you have weird stuff going on in your house. You'd be crucified. I was bullied enough as it was. So, just growing up in fear, growing up with questions all the time. Why? Why? My parents had the Catholic Church over the house continuously, blessing the house, praying. People would light candles and pray. And it just got worse. The activity got worse. My father left, and things just went out of control in that house. It was a very scary time for me. It was a very scary time for me.
Well, I
And
could only imagine. I mean, that's you're talking about being such a young age too. Now, how did that have a profound effect on you? Like getting into the, I mean, we'll get it if you want to get into it later, but getting into like the older years, maybe those adolescent earlier years of like 7 to 11. Was it just like, did you have a lot of different, not issues, but like a lot of different preconceived notions of how things maybe should be, or you were, because I was awkward at that time in my life. So
I was awkward at that time too. I still think I'm awkward. It's tough because again, you're dealing with such a small classroom, and I was bullied a lot for the way I looked. My parents didn't have a lot of money. Oh, it was torture. And you can't tell anybody. You can't, I had no shoulder to lean on. We didn't have social media back then or cell phones. I couldn't just private message my favorite paranormal investigator and say, hey, what's going on here? I couldn't talk to anybody. So, and I definitely didn't talk to my parents about it because it was just when something happened, you just never spoke about it again. You swept it under the carpet like nothing happened. So it was tough. I would say the years between 14 and 17 were tumultuous. The activity grew to voices. I had to move down into the basement of the house because my mother had a baby and we needed more room. And I did not want to be down there. Lots of room, but I hated it down there. And that's where pretty much all the magic happened. So I would hear voices quite a bit. And the only thing I could make out was my name. And it was scary. I'd hear footsteps. Things would disappear. I began sleeping with a pillow over my head, which I still do to this day. So for long-term effects, I would have to say the pillow over the head so I couldn't hear the voices. It's just such a habit now. I have to do that every night. My husband wasn't quite sure what to say about that when he first met me, but he's used to it now.
well, they tend to get used to it after a while. Everybody has their idiosyncrasies, as we become adults. It's what happens, in our previous lifetime, in a sense, because before you meet that person, it's like a whole different lifetime. Those little
Yeah.
things, they add up. But when you find somebody that loves you, they accept all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's not a problem. And then when I met him, I had a boyfriend before him, and the whole haunted house thing, he didn't get it, thought I was nuts, but he absolutely saw it firsthand quite a bit. And then he accepted it. And then when I kicked him to the curb for very good reasons, I met my husband immediately and thought I was nuts. The whole ghost things, they don't exist. And then he saw it immediately. So I was like, all right, so I'm not lying. And, when we were in the condo, I bought a condo at 21 years old, and I had a team. I found a team on the internet. I had never heard of them before. And they came to the house and they did an investigation. Well, about a week later, they called me and said, can we come back? We really found a lot of evidence in your 1800s schoolhouse that you live in, and we really want to come back and bring some new people with us. So I said, yeah, absolutely. This is great. And during that week, I was flipping through the channels and I saw Mike Dion, the kid who was at my house, on a television show with two guys named Jason and Grant on Ghost Hunters. And when he came to my house, I'm like, why didn't you tell me you had a TV show? He goes, we don't like to talk about it. So I was completely blown away that I didn't know that about this group. And we're talking 2005 here. So the show had just aired and I had no clue. And they came back several times and they were finding things, EVPs and apparitions in my condo, quite a bit. So that led to me joining the team. I went through some training in Boston and paid my fees and got my certifications and did many, many investigations under my belt, and eventually became a part of Ghost Hunters International, the series, the spinoff.
That's really cool. I mean, and the crazy part about the international part is you got to go around the whole world exploring these places that were just, I mean, I tell everybody, I would have been scared out of my mind. I would have ran right out of the room. I would have had to bring a change of pants, all that. It would have been bad.
I had my share of moments. When you're thousands and thousands of miles from home, you're stressed out to the max. You're not in the best conditions in the world. A lot of places don't even have running water or electricity or bathrooms. The weather, oh boy, the weather wasn't always in your favor out there. You're so stressed out, working 16 to 18-hour days on your feet in front of a camera, but you have to look good. You got to say the right thing. You got to be on cue and be clever and witty and smart. And it's tough, man. It's tough. I got to see some cool things, though. I got to say that, hey, I investigated Chillingham Castle or Frankenstein's Castle. I got to see Prague. I got to go to Budapest. Never thought I'd be seeing these places in my life, Yeah, but,
Absolutely.
It was an absolute honor, really, to be part of just 6 people that were chosen to be part of this show, with people that I had worked with before and people that I'd met before and people that I really adored before. Just couldn't believe it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I heard Prague is a beautiful city. I heard it's really great.
It's really neat. My best memories of the Prague, I went to Salvador Dali Museum out there, and everyone wears giant fur, like floor-length fur coats. You'd think you're in Russia. I mean, you're really not that far, but they really do wear a lot of furs out there, and the women wear the giant fur hats.
The babushkas.
Yeah. And everyone's furry, very much furry out there. There's no doubt about that. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. It really is. I'd like to go back.
That's awesome. So you basically in your life went from one haunted house to another haunted house?
Yeah.
That is.
I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I was really relieved to get out of my childhood home at 21 years old. I was really relieved because I had it. My mother had taken me to a Christian counseling center when I was 14 years old, and they tried to exorcise demons out of me because they thought I was possessed. And no, I was just like this, just fine.
You hear that a lot too, when people go through these experiences, the first thing they want to do is call a priest and have them come and throw holy water on you like something's wrong, but
well, we did that too a lot. We did that too. I had priests, I had bishops, Yeah, I mean, it's scary stuff. Wondering what's wrong with you just because you hear voices and this and that. Like, what's wrong with me? And other family members were seeing things and hearing things too. It wasn't just me, but I'm the one that got stuck at the Christian Counseling Center with hands being laid on me and people screaming.
Oh,
But
jeez.
yeah, that
That's
kind
a
of stuff.
sounds like a nightmare, honestly.
It was detrimental for a while, and I told the woman who was sitting across from me in a chair that it should be my mother sitting in that chair, not me. And I never went back. I kicking and screaming. I never went back there. I refused. And this was not what you do to a child. It's just not. And so when I got out of there, I was a homeowner at 21. I saved my money. I bought a condominium, and that was really cool. It was a loft with all exposed brick and huge windows and a big spiral staircase.
That sounds
And
nice.
it was very nice. The hardwood floors were from the 1800s. You could see where the children's chairs and desks were nailed into the floors. So a lot of history, and immediately started seeing signs of it being haunted. I thought for a minute that my ghost had followed me there. I really did. I thought they followed me there. And it wasn't until I started bumping into a few of the residents that live in the building that they say, oh, this place has been haunted a long time. Yeah, this and that. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me.
That's
So
crazy.
all these things were happening, and oh my God. But it was a different kind of haunting. I could feel it lighter. I could feel it not as scary. Um, back in the house I grew up in, it was a deep-rooted fear inside, just an awful fear feeling. Awful, awful. It's hard to describe if you've never felt it. Um, Complete vulnerability when you feel this feeling. But when I lived in the condo in Leominster, Massachusetts, it was more of a sprite, somebody just trying to play tricks on you to get your attention, a more lighthearted, hey, I'm here sort of feeling.
Hmm.
So I never felt that fear. I was scared when things would break or be really loud. It would alarm me, but nothing like the stuff I grew up in my house.
I
So
was going to ask you, what's the difference or the main differences between the one you grew up with and now the one you had coming into your adult life? What was the big
different,
difference? I mean,
yeah, different people, different spirit. You know, I lived in a school, from 1997 until 2016, and there were kids there, there were teachers there. I had lots of guests throughout the years, lots from all over the country, and the apparitions that people would see. And mostly, many different people were spotting a woman in a long black dress with a high collar and very long sleeves, and they believed she was a teacher. And they kept spotting her in the same spot every time, so it was kind of weird. She could have been a teacher when that was the fifth grade, and people would spot children. My husband saw an apparition of our dog when she passed.
oh
So
man.
another apparition of a woman. Yeah, so he went from not believing any of this stuff to like all of a sudden he's seeing ghosts left and right more than me. So
He
kind of
went
job.
from not he went from not knowing anything about it to diving right into the fire, pretty much. It sounds
Oh
like he
yeah,
was right
yeah.
there.
I'm the one who's nuts, but he's seeing ghosts all the time. So
It's
yep,
crazy you say that dress too. That sounds more like a mid to late 1800s type of attire,
absolutely,
almost
absolutely.
into like what would derive into Victorian style, especially being in that area too.
Yeah, the school was started in the mid 1800s, and it was a school until 1984. And then they closed it down for 5 years, renovated, and opened in '89 to condos. So I had one of the two-story condos on the top floor. They considered it the penthouse, and it was the eighth grade, and then part of an attic. So it was great. But there's energy there, and it
It
wasn't until
sounds really awesome. Sounds really nice.
And when Paranormal State came on A&E channel to do an episode there, they discovered after looking up some history that the condo that I lived in was the town's first fire station. It was actually a firehouse before it was a school. I had no idea. So that explained a lot. That explained a lot of the sightings that some people would tell me about. It explained a lot about certain different energies. Oh yeah,
That's
kind of neat though.
but definitely, definitely. Now, going into different paranormal investigations that you've been on, tell us some of the stories of them. Some of like, let's say, like the weirdest one you've been on, the
Sure.
scariest. Let's go into some of those stories. They're to you, they're like regular war stories, but people who aren't exposed to that, they're like, oh my god, some.
Regular war stories. Yeah, so I have a couple. I did join New England Paranormal, the team, and New England Paranormal was founded by Steve Gonzalez from Ghost Hunters, and it composed of Kristen Gartland and Mike Dion and a lot of the original Ghost Hunters cast members. And I was on an investigation in Clinton, Massachusetts, which was the next town over from where I lived. And it was a small ranch, nothing overwhelming, small house. And a man lived there. He inherited the house from his uncle. And the man was complaining of paranormal activity. And we're, trekking along, setting up recorders and interviewing the client. And I hear right in my ear, I hear, ah, and I'm like, oh my God, like just the goosebumps were a mile high. And I looked around and immediately everybody had heard it. Everyone was like, what the hell was that? And I caught it on the recorder, and it happened again when we were doing an EVP session, but this time it was in the next room. It was a man going, ah, like trying to breathe really hard. And the nephew, the guy that lives there, when we pulled him in and said, does this sound anything to you? He says it sounded like my uncle who died from emphysema in this
Holy
house.
cow!
So we kept, oh God, we kept picking it up, and we kept hearing it. And it was just like bone chilling because you know that it's just right there in the room with you. And Taps did end up filming there. They did do an episode after that, after we were gone, due to the EVPs we were picking up. I have another great story for you. I was on the USS Salem years ago, battleship in Quincy, Massachusetts, and very haunted ship. There's always something going on there. And I was injured. I had a foot surgery. So as far as clunking around the ship all night, I was sort of the lame duck. There's a lot of times I had to sit while the rest of the group did the paranormal investigation. And there was a guest from England, and he was a psychic. And I was just getting to know the kid, didn't really trust him. And he took my crowd, and he was leading them around. So I'm sitting on the cots down below the deck where the men used to sleep at night. And it's dark in there. The only really light there was from all the exit signs and the hallway lights. It's very dark, but enough for you to be able to see the cots and be able to look around the room a little bit. And I'm looking around the room, just sitting there. I can hear everybody off in the distance. And I looked to my right, and I saw a very small, petite figure in white, like a white shirt, white pants, white long sleeves, white on the head. And then couldn't see a face. And then and then it was just gone. And I just was like, all right, mine's totally playing tricks on me. No problem. I'm just going to write this off like I usually do. And no big deal. I'm not going to say anything to anybody. They're not going to believe me. So the psychic comes up from down below. He's coming up the ladder to the room that I'm sitting in. And he's climbing the ladder. You know, those ladders on battleships are 90 degrees.
Oh
And
man!
he gets up to the top of the ladder and he turns around. Now he's on my right. He goes, oh, Jesus Christ, there's somebody standing right there. And I just burst out laughing. I'm like, no way. I'm laughing. The guy was there. I'm not crazy. I couldn't believe that this kid had just seen him standing there. And I said to him, come on. And I'm just laughing because it was just like, wow. I didn't know what to say. I just, I had seen it and then I didn't see it anymore. And then the psychic came up the ladder, turned around, and was standing right there in front of him. So, boy, that was a wake up call. I'm not a medium, but I've seen ghosts before. I'm not talented enough where they come up to me and start telling me their woes.
Right.
But I've seen them, but I tend to really just keep it to myself because I grew up doing that pretty much my whole life. I don't want to be ridiculed or doubted. And let's see, I mean, I've had so many things. When we were at Chillingham Castle in England filming for Ghost Hunters International, Donna LaCroix and I were walking into the chapel area. It's a small stone walkway. I actually have to duck to get in there. And we were going to go film a scene. And all the film crews behind us, they're all walking. They either have their cameras on their shoulders or they're holding their cameras in their hands. There must be at least 9 to 10 people behind us. And as we're walking towards that door, we saw, it looked like a Halloween prop. It was illuminated. It was glowing white light. It was a white snake. Now we're inside. We're indoors. It was a white snake spiraling up the chapel door that we were just about to enter, and it had black stripes. So it looked almost like a zebra.
Wow.
So it was black, white and black, white and black, and it was emitting light. And we stood there, and I said, okay, we're all watching this, right? And everybody is like, oh my God, what is that? What is that? As we're walking towards it. Now we're about 5 feet away, and then the thing disappeared into thin air. Crazy.
Holy cow. Holy cow.
Ghost snake, and tons of witnesses, thank God, tons of witnesses. You know, it happened so quick, they didn't turn the cameras on and catch it, which was a bummer. But what they did catch something that happened in Romania, but I don't know why. We never saw that footage again. I don't know why it didn't make the cut, because it was a very strange phenomenon. Very strange. Are you familiar with Brian Harnois?
Mm-hmm.
A troublemaker. So him and I were filming a scene. It was either in Slovakia or Romania, one of those two castles. And we were in a taxidermy room. And it was quite incredible. The room was all glass with stuffed animals. And we were in there for quite some time. And then it's dark. It's very dark. There's no lights on in there. That's usually the way it went. We were experiencing some paranormal activity. We could feel things standing next to us. And I know you were mentioning to me earlier that you've never been on a paranormal investigation, but you will experience this at some point. You'll see when the darkness around you gets even darker. And it's really neat. It's really neat. It's like pitch black. It gets even blacker, like a black hole. It's just unbelievable. And you can see the shape of people, and you know, they're tall, they're standing next to us, and they're all around us, and I can see heads, I can see shoulders, and we're just kind of standing there, and I'm kind of scared, actually. I don't know what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, there's one door in front of us that we were actually facing. Now this door, if you were to open this door, you would fall about 150 feet to the castle grounds, because we were up in the tower. So there's nothing on the other side of that door, because before we started filming, we opened the door and there was a broken catwalk that went from that door, but you obviously can't go across this catwalk. And it's just like a movie, you know, like Lord of the Rings. It's like this broken catwalk.
Dangerous. You open the door, you're like, oh, okay, nope, shut that door, put tape on it.
And it had been snowing. It was a blizzard. It was blizzard conditions, dangerous. I could have nearly died that night with something else that happened, but I was quick on my feet and I fixed it. But anyway, so we already knew what was on the other side of that door. We knew it was a door that nobody could come and go through, that we were on the top of the tower. And all of a sudden that door illuminated blue, the brightest blue, ocean blue color, like beams of light coming under the door, the sides of the door, and above the door, blue beams coming into our room, illuminating the room.
Wow.
And so Brian and I are standing there like, we're speechless. And Brian goes, I'm going to go open the door. I'm like, no. Because in my head, I'm like, you're going to let some damn alien in or something. Like,
don't do it. Exactly. I would have been like, nope, don't do it.
There's no light in this castle. There's no electricity. There's no water. There's no bathrooms. Where is this light coming from? And it just happened. It happened, and it was like that for about 30 seconds. And so we're being filmed. The cameras are filming all this. They're in front of us. They're filming the door. And then all of a sudden, boom, the emergency lights go on, and we hear someone over a megaphone saying, okay, it's a wrap. And we were like, shit. We will never know what that was. We will never know like what happened there, because then the blue light stopped. And I'll never know what that was, but people on the outside never saw anything coming on the inside. And we opened the door again, and there's nobody there. There's no lights. There's no way. The castle tower was so far away from headquarters and everything. I mean, castles in Romania are pretty damn big. It's
Yeah.
not like we did not have professional lighting out there. There were no special effects lighting. Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International didn't do that, where other episodes would. They would have spooky lighting on the outside. We didn't do that.
Right.
So it was just odd.
That
Yeah.
it definitely sounds crazy. And a question I have for you now that we've discussed that is, you know, like you said when you were younger, that you didn't tell anybody about the sightings that you actually had, be fear
No.
of them making fun of you or ostracizing you. And now you're at a point at this moment where you're experiencing this with other people and with the world, in a sense, to the television program. How did that feel at that moment? If you think about it, you know, now that you went from being so inclusive with it, or you know, introverted, but now you're being extroverted with it. I mean, was that some kind of dynamic change for you?
It was complete validation for me, because now I wasn't crazy all those years. Especially when a phenomenon happens and it's caught in camera, or there are other people around to witness it. Even the people that used to over the years come visit my home to do paranormal investigations for an entire weekend, and hear footsteps, see people, hear voices, without me even lifting my finger or even having to be in the room. It was good. You know, as I got older, it was more accepted to have paranormal activity in your home. It was cool to be a ghost
Right.
hunter. I wasn't so much a freak. You know, it was just almost like taking my fears and twisting them around, and now almost like a power to have been selected to do the television shows and to have the knowledge that I have, and then turn it around on them. Not so scared anymore, because now I know an awful lot about spirit and how things work and what to do and what not to do. And I mean, things were awful scary back then. We had some scenarios, things would happen even on my early investigations, but it's really rare for a spirit to hurt you. You know, I had psychological damage from spirit when I was a child, the fear, but they're not going to physically, it's very rare to be physically hurt. There's a lot of charlatans out there that'll say that they got gouged or scratched or pushed, but it's very rare. And we have to understand, a lot of people say, what do you think a ghost is? And I laugh and I say, a ghost is just you and me when we're dead. What kind of ghost are you going to be, Rob, when you die? Are you going to be Rob? You're probably going to be Rob, right?
I'm not sure, but we'll see. Hopefully, it'll be something exciting, right? You know, I get to bug a lot of people that maybe got into my hair, you know, while I was alive. But you know, and
Yeah.
another thing I wanted to say too is that, was that validation a major motivational tool moving forward in some of your other projects?
Of course. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I started getting speaking arrangements from all over the country, and I never liked audiences. I had to, though. I had an audience of 800 at Ohio University. I thought I was going to die.
Wow.
I thought I was going to die. I had to take a Xanax before I got on stage, because just approaching the school, there was at least a quarter-mile long line out to the auditorium, all the way down the escalators into the shopping center. People were sitting on jackets and mats waiting to get in the auditorium. And my posters were everywhere. I was like, this is just out of control. Like, who wants to hear me talk? I just don't understand.
And they all knew who you were too. That must be a
Posters were
surreal
everywhere.
moment too, you know?
It was wow. I mean, and then I did Comic-Con in San Diego, and I got to go into the same entrance as all the A-listers, and holy crap. Another Xanax moment. Just wow. Who would have thought, you know, who would have thought that this young scared girl who just wanted to get away from ghosts would run towards it in such a manner as I did.
That's
Kind of
truly incredible. It's truly incredible. If you know if people knew your story and now where you are, I mean, it's crazy. And not only did you run towards ghosts, you've actually innovated specific things to into this paranormal field, you've come up with inventions, and you've worked towards something that's something like almost like something that can define specific situations easier. It's truly incredible. It's truly incredible.
I did that all for myself. My father is a scientist, and I grew up with chemical kits and things to throw into flames and things to add to water. And I've been doing experiments my whole life, probably many illegal experiments. And the first thing I did was I took this tool that pretty much anybody can get a hold of, and it splatters. It's the size of a pen, and it splatters a laser beam, for miles. And I started using it for ghost hunting, and it was incredible. I mean, we're actually seeing things passing through these laser beams that weren't in the room. And it was like this phenomenon that took off. I was contacted by the whole cast of ghost hunters. I had to supply the show, Ghost Adventures, Ghost Lab. All these TV shows wanted the apparatuses from me. So, that was one thing. And people were really getting into it. They were convenient. I wasn't the first person to use laser beams in paranormal investigating, but I was the first person to use this one. It was portable. It only required 2 batteries. You didn't need an electrical source. And, and then a friend of mine, we put together a tripod for this thing so it would keep it still on a table. And then we both invented a gadget called the iWay. I am a huge fan of the Ouija board. Not that I use it often, but I love them. And you know how it all goes when you're using a Ouija board and people like, you're faking it. So and so's pushing it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to find a way where we can prove to people that there's nobody pushing this thing here. So I created a planchette that actually measures people's finger pressure. So as the thing's moving around, if you were to potentially push it ever so much just to get it to a certain letter, it would tell you on the screen. So we actually had a prototype made, and I did it for the first time. I used it at a conference in South Carolina, and we made a Ouija board out of a tablecloth in a Sharpie. And I took the thing out, and I said, I had a huge audience. I said, who doesn't believe in Ouija boards? So we picked 5 people, and all 5 of those people sat down at that tablecloth, plastic wrapped tablecloth with the homemade Ouija board on it. And in the kitchen, there were some shot glasses. So, we had experimented with some shot glasses first, and the shot glasses were moving around the tablecloth on demand as if it was a working Ouija board. So then we replaced the shot glass with the planchette. And what we did was we had everyone put their fingers on it and we taired it. So in other words, let's say it said that there was 8 ounces of pressure with 5 different people's fingers on it. We zeroed it out. So there's 0 pressure. Now we started asking questions, and as it was moving around, that planchette was at 0 the whole time, meaning nobody's putting any pressure on it.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
It was really cool, and I didn't know at the time. I had no idea that Mysteries Magazine was there filming and writing an article about it the whole time. They didn't tell me until after. So there were witnesses, very credible people in the field that watched how incredible this was. And of course, the skeptics that got to try it out were just completely mystified that it was working and that we could prove that nobody was pushing it. So
I think it's one of the awesomest things. That's sort of like the middle finger to all the naysayers. You know what I mean? Like, here you go. We'll make something and we'll put you in your place too. And I love the attitude behind it was just phenomenal. And I think that it's so awesome too, because you never really know if somebody's pushing the Ouija, the thing that sits on the Ouija, but you've proved that it's actually an element that can be used to communicate, which is awesome. It's just as important as any EVP or anything like that. It's super important. It's an innovation. It's making progress in this field to show how real it is. That's another question I had for you is, from when you started doing all of the ghost hunter stuff, the paradigm shift inside of the acceptability of the community from people on the outside is dramatic now. I think that, what's your opinion on that? I mean, how does that make you feel now that a lot of the work that you've done and put out on TV has created a paradigm shift in people accepting that this is a reality.
It's been pretty incredible. I'm glad to be part of the pioneer crew, and very glad because there are shows out there that are purely entertainment. I've not been a fan of those shows. They'll have their fans. They'll have their fans. They'll come and go. But the pioneer group of television shows that was about the scientific stuff, using the equipment, using different people. I'm pretty honored still to have been a part of that. I do not do investigations any longer because after you've done so many shows and you know so many people, of course you get the friends of yours that are riding your coattails, and they think that you're going to get them on television and start promoting things for them, and then some people were faking evidence. Some people that I was friends with were faking things, and I'm not a big fan of that. Obviously, you have an agenda. You have to make things up, and so I just separate myself now from most of it.
No, definitely. I mean, it's when I started doing like with shows, when I started dealing with them, I was on a show called Closer Encounters, and I was co-hosting now and again. And it was a ufology show, but when these other people don't realize that the people who've had genuine experiences, when, like you said, the charlatans come on and embellish stories, you discredit the people who've actually had that experience, because now they're looking at you as a whole, and discredit to one causes discredit to the other. And I think it's pathetic, and I don't think that people should do that. If, like, I personally have never had any kind of ufology experience, any kind of paranormal experience. I've caught in shadows out of my eye, but I can't say whether that's paranormal or not. That could just be a reflection thing, So, it's crazy, but and I admit that, and I love this stuff. I do a lot of research for it, but charlatans it's a negative outcome to the entire community, which we try and push those people out, and I think that's crazy. So let's talk a little bit about your book. And I know you wrote what the book was it got 5-star review by examiner.com. It came out in December of 2012. It's called Paranormal Unwrapped. So give us some insight on the book as well.
And I designed the cover.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I was offered a book contract and I obliged. I did want to write a book, and one of my favorite paranormal authors is Katie Boyd. And Katie Boyd is from Goffstown, New Hampshire. And she's written a whole series, including one of my favorite books in the world called Devils and Demonology 101. And it goes into the history of devils and demons, their names, their functions, their purpose in life, even angels. Very, very informative book. Very intelligent writing. And she's done a lot of books on haunted locations, haunted towns. So she asked me if I would co-write a book with her, and I was very proud to do that. And we did it Stephen King style. We found ourselves locked up in a cabin for a weekend with a little log stove, and we wrote our brains out for 48 hours and collaborated together on the best way to go about the books. It starts off with a lot of the stuff that I've gone through that we talked about so far today. It starts off with some bio about Katie and the hauntings that she grew up with. And it does talk about ghost hunting, the do's, the don'ts, the pros, the cons, what to do, what not to do. And then it follows up with some cryptozoology. So we picked our favorite crypto monsters like the Mothman and Chupacabra and stuff like that. And I talked a little bit about growing up in Monsterland in Leominster, Massachusetts, because at the end of my road were sand pits and woods for miles. And it was reputed to have satanic, ritualistic sort of things going on in the woods, and there were murders. But the funny thing is, it was known for Sasquatch sightings and still is. And growing up in Monsterland, and I was a little kid trick or treating, and then you get all the punks, like the seniors in high school with their Trans Ams pulling up. Where's Monsterland? Like over there. So it's kind of neat. Like, I actually grew up in a pretty famous area of town where there's Sasquatch sightings. So,
Have you
yeah,
actually had any kind of Sasquatch or Bigfoot sightings or investigated any areas like that?
I was never allowed as a child to go down there because my parents thought that I would be decapitated by someone or something. So, um, I never went down into the woods that deep. My brother did, but I didn't. I was a little kid. Even when I was an older kid, I did not want to go into those woods by myself or even with a friend. I mean, they're pretty scary, especially when there's a satanic altar supposedly out there. I didn't have the balls. But
It's it's crazy too because when you're a child and you grow up with those types of stories that float around town. I grew up in upstate New York a little bit, so it's not so upstate, but about 45 minutes from the city. And there wasn't any kind of things like that, but there was just certain do's and don'ts and stories that went around where kids went into the woods and they never came out. And you were just frightened. You were like, I'm not going over there because I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be that one that doesn't come back.
exactly. I just didn't go down there. So no, but there's plenty of stories. And there's a kid from my town that went out there and found a Bigfoot footprint, he thinks, and now he's on that Sasquatch TV show on I forget what channel. It might be Travel Channel or something like that. So we're both Lemon Star people that have had our sightings on different TV shows.
That's pretty
Um,
cool.
but yeah. So back to your question about has the old school television generation been mesmerized by all the new stuff coming out? Sort of in that range. There's all kinds of new stuff constantly coming on TV. I just don't want everybody to be so sick of it altogether that they give up and they don't want to watch stuff like that anymore. But I watch certain shows. I have my favorites, especially this time of year, and it's all over TV during Halloween season. So
That's
um,
that's the name of the game. Ghosts and Halloween go hand in hand.
yeah, I gotta watch my horror movies. I gotta watch my unsolved mysteries and some of
Oh,
my
I
own.
love unsolved mysteries. I love unsolved mysteries. I like the old ones.
I've been watching the old ones pretty much every day. I take a nap and I listen to Robert Stack, and actually, it's my ringtone on my phone right now.
Is it? That's awesome. He's got the best voice too. He's like, were they there? Were they not? Who
Very
knows?
monotone voice. The next,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a couple that disappeared on a cruise ship. Yeah, I like Robert Stack. The new one's not bad either. It's not the same without him. I like the show with Robert Shatner as well. In Search of, is that it?
Oh, unexplained.
Oh,
Right?
In Search of is guy from American Horror Story, Quinto,
Yes.
Zachary Quinto. Another
That's a
show
good
that
one too. I like
another
that one too.
yeah.
I'm into all that stuff. Mysteries, ufology. I love all that stuff. I love going down rabbit holes and I'll research. Like, let's say there's a main premise to the rabbit hole. I'll find something within that research that makes me down another rabbit hole to come back to the main topic, to go back down another rabbit hole. It just keeps going.
Yeah.
I love that stuff, especially when it's involving history, like rich history. And a lot of the places that you guys, went into all have such a rich history. And that's one of the next question I have for you is what are some of your favorite places that you were either in or places that you want to go to if you still investigate anymore?
I went to Bobby Mackey's Country Music World a lot. From 2009 until 2014, at least 14 times we had been there. I had seen it as a child on TV all the time. This rundown country music dive bar in Kentucky, and this guy Bobby Mackey, and I was in love with the story. I needed to go there, and oddly, when I met my husband, almost 20 years ago, he's like, yeah, I used to go there all the time to hang out because he lived in Louisville. And then he lived in Cincinnati, and Cincinnati borders that town. And he's like, yeah, I know that place. I used to go there to hang out. I never knew it was haunted. And I'm like, you've been there? Oh my God. So I got a chance to go there after filming and do an investigation. It was incredible. We brought a demonologist along with us and some psychics and had a phenomenal evening. It was very active. And we just kept going back there, back there, back there. We fell in love with Bobby Mackey. He almost had us arrested the first time he met us. Long story, but he
Really?
ended up. Oh yeah, yeah. And he ended up taking us out to the Montgomery Boathouse for ribs and buying us all dinner. And I love him, and he loves me, and it's all good now. He was a gross.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah, gross.
You went from handcuffs to ribs. I mean, that's a pretty exceptional story.
He was threatening us with the police, but it was a little touch and go there for a minute. But it wasn't his fault. It wasn't our fault. You know, a couple con artists got involved, but he's just one of the best people on this planet. He's one of my favorite humans, and I really, really enjoy that venue. I miss it. And there's another venue. You're a New Yorker, so in Napanoch, New York, it's called the Shanley Hotel, and it used to be
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it used to be a prominent place where Teddy Roosevelt stayed, P.T. Barnum, lots of celebrities and presidents and all that jazz on their way into New York City. That would be the way to go before the highways were there, and a very deep, rich history of gangsters and mafia and murders and suicides and hookers in that building. And lots of activity. My husband and I were so close to the owner that we named the pub that came with our home when we bought it after Uncle Sal's Pub. We had named him that, and then everyone in the paranormal started calling him Uncle Sal. And
That's awesome.
Another gentleman that we became very close with. I was the first paranormal celebrity to ever spend the night there and do a ghost hunt there. And
That's awesome.
yeah, he passed a couple years ago, so we kept the honor going with the bar. And I love that place. It's super haunted. It's surely not to disappoint if you were to go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I just want to let the audience know, if you guys have any questions for Shannon, put them in the comments. I can see all of them. We'll get them in front of her. We actually have a couple comments here that we can pull up. It says, Teresa says, my daughter sees shadow people and she's scared to death. Teresa, I would call somebody. Maybe you can get somebody to come investigate for you. And Julie says, our house came with a tenant. He was pretty active for a few years, but has been really quiet since. I fussed him out. He kept turning the lights off and ticked me off. Julie, that's pretty crazy.
It's got it under control.
Yeah, I guess you took care of it. I mean, Julie can be really tough, so she probably just told him to get the frig out, and then he's gone now. I mean, so you've done all these different investigations. What are some of the stories that stick out to you most in your mind when you go through, let's say like a recollection? What is some of the most prominent stories that stick out to you the most?
Stories. Well, we had a lot of stories when we were overseas in Europe, investigating the locations. We were always given stories.
Mm-hmm.
The local folklore, things like that. Are those the kind of stories you're interested in?
Yeah, all of it. Your stories, those stories that you had and that you came in contact with, all of that.
Well, I got to think about that because you are talking 10 years ago. One thing I can tell you is that local to me in Gardner, Massachusetts, is a mansion called the S.K. Pierce Mansion. And I became friends with the owner before he ever had it paranormally investigated. And he was a very popular local radio DJ. And I had known about him years before I met him. And he had me in there and I heard stories. I heard the story about a young boy that haunted that mansion and a housekeeper. I did a paranormal investigation there and I got an incredible EVP. He said one of the best he had ever heard. And eventually TAPS took on the case. Ghost Hunters filmed there. I was there for the filming. Ghost Adventures ended up going there and filming. But by the time Ghost Adventures got in there to go film, there was demons all over the house. And it was a demonic and all hell was breaking loose. So, I hate stories. I hate stories because stories, they warp. from person to person. And there have been some pretty tall tales told at Bobby Mackey's Country Music Bar. A lot of people listening will hear that there was a spirit called Johanna that killed herself with radium poisoning. She decided to drink some radium and she died up in the attic in the screen room. But you can't die from radium that quickly. It's a radiation, and it would take a long time to kill yourself that way. I mean, my dad's a chemist. And I did find evidence that she did not write the love poem up on the top floor where they used to stream the show lights and the cameras onto the stage. The love poem was written by the same person who labeled all of the gels that used to cover the spotlights, and that handwriting is prominent throughout the entire room. And so there's no evidence of anyone killing themselves up in that room. I hate stories because they're rumors. Nobody has fact. When it comes to fact, like haunted locations, you can legitimately find true people, true deaths. You can find history on suicides and murders and accidents. I do like those stories, but it doesn't mean that just because a place brought in a psychic and she feels that a little girl fell down the well and she's here with us, then that means that everybody that heard that story and that story going forward means that there's a dead girl here that fell down a well because a psychic said so. But the psychic already knew the history. So I'm not a big fan of stories. I really am not. And especially the medieval castles that we investigated, the stories. I mean, we're talking about probably 1,500 to 2,000 years of rumors being passed along. And, you know, I've seen dead bodies. I've seen skeletons. I saw torture chambers. Those are facts. You know, I've seen paranormal activity. That's a fact. But I don't believe people when they say they have stories.
So now, do you think that going into an investigation, knowing some of that history, could change your perception of what you see or what you think you see?
Of course it can change your perspective. Of course. You know, I mean, I went into some of these torture devices and saw them in the basement of these castles. So, I mean, obviously people died there. But I don't, you know, people, unless it's in writing, I'm just always very skeptical. And again, that's the scientist in me. I'm very skeptical about things. I need facts. Like even with the whole political chaos that's going on today, when people are mudslinging back and forth, either against Trump or against Biden, I need facts. I'm going to vote based on facts and not what you think and not what you think you heard or what you read on the internet. I'm one of those people that'll be like, yeah, you're false news. I hate false news. So going into an investigation, we were given sheets of paper with stories on them. And we had to know something about these locations we were going into, such as Mary King's Close in Scotland. If we didn't know anything, we wouldn't really know where to start.
Right.
So, you know, we have to get some facts. We had to get some stories about little Annie that had a room where people leave stuffed animals for her. I would have loved to have seen proof of this little girl in this room. But, you know, you're on a film set and you can't exactly get what you want, not even a bottle of water. So it's, you know, I try to just be objective. You know, I might not be like everybody. I want to really, I'm very skeptical. I want to know, I don't want to spread rumors. I don't want to go in and say, oh my God, there's a ghost standing in front of me if I'm wrong. I don't like to be wrong. I like to be right. I like to have facts in front of me. Stories are great, but then I want to know what the story is behind the story.
Of course. And being a skeptic, I think, makes you actually better at that kind of stuff because there isn't just something that you perceive that you saw. Like you said, you want facts, you want to see it with your own eyes to prove it right. And that's super commendable because I think that everything should be approached like that. Even like you said, you know, with the fake news and things like that, like you should really all do your own research because another facet of that is they say history is dictated by the victor. So you don't know, you know, so it's, things are in writing, but doesn't make them true, you know? And I agree with you on that 100%. I think that that's absolutely a great way to look at it. I really, really do, you know? And so now that we've gone into that and the book and things like that, now from what I'm reading, that you live somewhat on a farm. Do you still do you have turkeys and things like that? So tell the people about some of the things that you have running around the house.
We lost a turkey this week, sadly.
I'm
I don't
sorry to
know
hear
why.
that.
Yeah, she died of natural causes. She was only 2. So we're kind of bummed about that. She was the first turkey I ever had, but we have some turkeys, and my big boy, he's Edison. He's 42 pounds, and he's just beautiful. And I always wanted a turkey my whole life. I just wanted a turkey. You know, we're in Massachusetts, and turkeys are kind of our thing here. So I have pet turkeys. We have, sorry, we have
Whoop.
8 chickens. um, we have 8 chickens, and they're thriving. We've never lost a chicken yet. And I have some land, and we're looking to purchase some more land in New Hampshire. My husband and I like to go out on an ATV, and I'm doing a lot of metal detecting these days. I've been doing that for about 2 years. And
That's got to be so much fun.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's therapy. I get right in that dirt. I get dirty. I don't care. I crawl into cellar holes, spider webs in my face all over again. And having little pieces of history in my hand, and that's irrefutable proof, you know, not like ghosts. So little pieces of time. I just love it. And I frame them all, little pieces that I dig up.
What have you found out there from the
All
metal
kinds of
detecting?
things.
I love metal detecting. I think it's super fun. You find
Yeah.
all this stuff. You could even find something that's worth a lot of money, but you know, it's just like you said, the history of it, the things that you find. You can find musket balls, you can
Oh yeah.
find coins, pieces of jewelry, you know, just like a brooch. They don't make brooches anymore, you know, you can find that. And so what are
Yeah.
some of the one of the awesome things that you found? Tell us about them.
Gosh, I mean, just in my own yard, I've dug up musket balls, a couple toy guns, toy soldiers, lots of original old marbles. Those will never go bad. I found a lot of coins that date back to the 1800s.
Awesome.
A brooch, a Victorian sash brooch. And I find in some of the old cellar holes I've done, there were 1600s silverware pieces and 1600 china pieces and old colonial buttons, buttons that even professional colonial, what do you call it, people that just study colonial buttons. I found buttons that they don't even know what they are.
Wow.
Yeah, so the buttons are pretty cool. You can just really, you can find so much. Then you find like, you know, bells. I found a lot of bells, like sleigh bells from when they had sleigh horses. Those are called crotal bells, and like bells from farm animals. You find farm equipment, axes, hose. Just you can dig up anything that's metal. I mean, glass too, a lot of glass bottles. If you hit a bottle dump, then you get beautiful bottles. I mean, I have a whiskey bottle this big from 1940. I have small medicine bottles, tonic bottles, poison bottles from the 1800s that I dug up here in town. And it's just great. I mean, I have them scattered all over my house.
That's phenomenal. I think finding a brooch is like a metal detector's rite of passage. Like once you found the brooch, it's good to go. You know, like you're a part of the team now. So
Yeah, nobody really cared about that though. Like my colleagues were like, "All right, it's a brooch." It was. I think it was the crotal bell I found that some people say they wait 20 years to find one of those, and I've already found 3.
really,
Yeah, 1 in my yard and 2 in New Hampshire, and they're all made from the same company.
that's
And
awesome.
I found an old shoehorn made of copper and a letter opener from the 1800s. Beautiful, intricate letter opener in the shape of a samurai sword. Um, and I found my home's first doorbell. My home was built in 1886. And the first doorbell, the lead doorbell, was not far off the driveway. Pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So,
That's awesome. Now I know
skeleton keys are fine. Those are fun to find.
you do a lot of work with organizations, correct?
I do. I do.
Do you want to tell the people about some of these organizations and what you do?
Well, gosh, for the longest time, I was involved with teenaids.org, it was the world's largest AIDS organization. And I worked with them from the age of 17 up until about 30 years old. And I think my husband's gonna squeeze in here to try to make my internet better. let's hope that happens. Let's hope we're still here. And I did a lot of volunteering, a lot of volunteer work, teaching, a lot of work with the police in regards to that job. And then I've done many, many charities for cancer. I started a bakery in 2011 after all the filmings were done, and did a lot of donations to cancer societies, charities throughout. And the most recent charity work I just did was for Black Lives Matter movement. I donated all of the profits to videos for people on Starsona. Like anybody could just go up there and book me for $15, and I make a personal video for you, and it goes straight to you.
I've seen that. Yeah. That's awesome.
And I've done a lot of charities, attended a lot of charities, no fee, no expenses, just all on my own, in order to do appearances and presentations. There've been numerous ones. I really tapered it down over the past few years as far as my appearances, but okay. I just got word that the Wi-Fi in here should be better. And there's always something. I'm approached quite a bit. In fact, within the hour, I got an email. Somebody's asking me to be part of something this weekend, but it's a little short notice.
That is kind of short, right?
It's a little short notice. My husband and I were donators to MSPCA when we had our network, Pararock TV. And we had show sponsors, and we would donate. One of the people would pay for me to wear a certain hat throughout the show. They would pay $10 or $15 and send me a hat, and then I had to talk about the hat. And all that money went over to the dogs and cats over at MSPCA. But I do what I can. I'm always doing what I can. None of us reality TV people are millionaires, much to what people want to believe. We're just normal people with normal jobs and normal lives, and I do what I can.
I think that it's super commendable, and it's so honorable, and I admire that in you, that you take, this initiative to give back to people like that. I think it's such a great thing. I really, really do. It's from my heart. I think that's super awesome. That's super awesome, and I would hope to be able to do the same thing. I don't have any type of lividity and fame, power. So, but anything I can do to help out people, I think it's really a great thing to do, no matter what.
Everybody can do something, whether it's a child just doing some things for other kids, or just even, Rob, if you have a neighbor that can't get out during COVID, offer to do their grocery shopping for them. Just any small thing, it's monumental. You don't have to be a television celebrity and an author or wealthy to help people. You can just be yourself.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. But don't worry, if we start doing conventions, you're going to be one of the first people I call. I'll tell you that right now. We'll have you come out there, do some meet and greets, and sign some autographs, because I'm sure there's people out there who definitely want to see you.
I always enjoyed it. I enjoyed it in the past. To see people get excited to see me in the flesh, it's always weird. It's humbling. I don't think it's something I would ever get used to. But it's fun. It's fun to see people appreciate you in your work. It really is.
Absolutely. Now, talking about that, have you ever had any moments that stick out to you with that, where people see you, they notice you, and then all of a sudden they're in tears, or they want to come up and hug you? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it was crazy. It was a little crazy. The best advice someone gave me is just don't read anything about yourself on the internet. So I stayed off the internet because there's just no good about that. So, but I would have a lot of women, young girls. There was a girl that was trembling in front of me, shaking and sobbing. And I just grabbed her hands and I said, look, just stop. You're making me uncomfortable. Stop. Please stop. There's no need. There's just no need. Like, just calm down. There's no need. It's okay. And so I got her to stop sniffling and shaking, and I hugged her and we took pictures, and um, you never get used to that. Why? It's just me. I, you know, I think I'm a nerd and whatever. So I don't know. Some people are pretty much way into television a lot more than I am, but my husband gets gaga over athletes. Athletes do it for him. We would bump into athletes all the time on planes, and just like, oh my god. And I'd be like, I don't care.
It definitely happens to men when they see an athlete. They're like, oh, that guy
Guys,
plays. It kind of is a little bit. I don't know. Like I honestly, I used to get really starstruck like that, but as of late, I don't anymore. I just want to talk to them and say hi and be like, hey,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Like, how are you? But people sometimes they look at you and they're like, well, what's up, weirdo? Like, I don't know you and you're talking to me like that, but
I had to learn that early on to just be very, very normal around the other stars, because Robert Englund, funny story. I love him. Oh my God, Freddy Krueger, are you kidding me? And I was at a convention, and he walked in. He's very small. He's a small man. I was surprised. They always are.
right.
And he walked by me, and he's got his whole entourage. So there was no chance he was even going to glance my way. And he sets up a table around the corner, but they had to put up curtains around him because he's so exclusive. Meanwhile, I'm completely exposed with my table. And I did, the show had not started yet. Everybody was just setting up their tables. And my table was in front of the bathrooms, which I actually thought was a pretty good place because everyone would know when they come out of the bathroom who I was. So I'm setting up my table, and there's nobody around. And Robert Englund has to go pee. So he goes by my table, and he's looking at me, he's nodding and smiling, and I'm trying not to die. And he walks right into the ladies' room.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Women's room. The words must be at least 3 feet tall. All right. I don't know how that happened, but I'm sitting there, I'm staring, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm just waiting. And he comes out and he's saying stuff, and his hands are going a mile a minute. And I just looked at him and I went, like, I'm not saying a thing, So he goes back into the right door. He uses the men's room. And he comes back out to my table. He goes, so what is this? And he's looking around. He goes, oh, you're a ghost hunter. And he's just being very cool. And I just sat there and I looked at him and I said, I love you.
He must have been like, oh, okay. That's awesome.
I've loved you since V. I love you. And he's laughing, and he's just enamored, and genuinely kind. And then he still charged me $80 to have a photo taken with him. But you know what? Best photo ever.
Well, it definitely is. So you're a big fan of horror, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
Give us your top 5 or 7 horror movies. Give it to us.
Okay. I love The Ring. I loved The Orphanage. I loved The Orphanage was a Spanish movie by Del Guillermo. God, that was such a good movie. Was it The Orphanage? I might be wrong about that, because you guys are gonna have to Google the Spanish version of Del Guillermo's movie. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I loved the Exorcist movies. I love the Exorcism of Annalise. I'm wicked into American Horror Story. Love it, especially the Lady Gaga one. Oh my God. I'm pretty much a fan of all of them. I don't like the slasher flicks. Like, I wasn't a big fan of the massacre ones and Chainsaws and Carrie and Blood. Now I like more paranormal related exorcism type. I know you would think I wouldn't watch any of that stuff after what I went through, but they really intrigue me. I do like the series, Haunting in Connecticut series, stuff like that. And then when I in the 80s, I would watch the trippy LSD horror movies, and some other like really crazy ones out there. But
that's awesome.
What are your top movies?
Horror, I have to say, I loved, and this is just because of the precedent of my time, I loved Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it was 3 with the Dream Warriors. That was one of my biggest favorites. Um, The Ring is definitely up there.
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, there's a Friday the 13th. I don't know which one it is, but he's fighting this guy and Jason punches his head off. I think it's number 7. It's like one of the like really out there ones. Um, it's very abstract, right? It's very abstract.
But,
I didn't see I didn't expect this question. I got to think about that. So let's see.
yeah. You got to be on cue, buddy, because I'm the
I
one always doing
know.
questions.
Though I think it's called Haunted Hill, Haunted on the
That's
Hill.
I did
That's
enjoy
a
that one. Yeah, we
that
just
was a
finished
good
the
one.
Bly Manor, The Haunting on Bly Manor. Just
Oh,
finished
and The Conjuring. The Conjuring was a good one. I like that
Conjuring.
one too.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
I actually
Yeah,
interviewed some people who were just there doing paranormal investigation. It's wild.
yeah.
What was that? They said,
Yeah, I met the couple over the summer that bought the house, and they said that nothing had happened there. So I'm torn.
really?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe stuff's happening there now that happens.
Maybe. I
Yeah.
bet. You know what? You know what else I think sometimes too is a lot of these when people like project these stories that maybe are made up. You know how they always say like sometimes your thoughts and enough people think it like you can manifest things into reality like the power of
Right.
prayer when you're in a group it you know it exudes it, which is kind of what my science says. It says the mind is powerful, you know.
Yeah.
Your mind can trip you up on things. So
Yeah,
I
it's
was
true.
trying. I always try and make a little marquee board that has some kind of, you know, some kind of saying, and there's so many ways you could take that. So I thought it was good. But you know, no, definitely, you know, sometimes people manifest these stories, and then people go there looking, like you said, looking
Yeah.
for specific things, and they find what you're looking for. You know, if you're looking for something like when you're listening to the EVP boxes, they say if you're thinking of your name, you're going to hear it over and over and over and over because you're trying to hear it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I love EVP. I miss it. I used to do quite a bit when I would speak at the college campuses. I'd work with the kids and teach them about EVP. And boy, those days were fun of just scaring the absolute crap out of them. When they get an EVP, it's like, wow. Or
That's
just,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. I do miss the public speaking events. Life has just changed so much, and now I'm just so much more back into normality. I had some friends, Mark and Debbie Constantino, that were involved in a pretty serious murder suicide, and after that happened, I pretty much threw in the towel. That's not anything that should have happened. That's not anything I want to happen to me. I do think that constantly dealing with the afterlife could rub off on people. I've seen a lot of bad things happen to people. So I'm just not taking any more chances.
You know, that's another saying is they say when you stare into the abyss too long, it envelops you, you know? I,
Yeah. And
I'm sorry to hear
I
that though, but you know,
yeah, they had some demons and all they did was chase them. So they got some. And it was tragic. And she gave me a wallet that looked like a Ouija board years ago, and I see it and my heart just breaks. And I don't want to be that another victim like that. I don't want to let people down and go that way. Not that it would, but just I've seen a lot of bad things happen to a lot of good people. So I just try to stay as normal as I can now and keep my nose clean.
oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, that's a good way to be because what used to be when I first, you know, started talking to a lot of people and you know you get into the paranormal community a little bit, you see it out from the outside and you see that there's a lot of unity, but at the same time there's a lot of ego in the different
Yeah.
teams and people, and it's just you know, it's it's the nature of human, I guess you could say. You know, people tend to boast and things like that, and it's a little different, you know. And to keep up on everything now is like you said, it's saturated so much, but to keep up on everything is damn near impossible. So much going on all the time, you know. Even on
It is.
Facebook, I'm a part of like 18, 19 groups that are like big groups, and then there's like 100 little ones. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. Especially during COVID, at least it keeps people in touch with each other. So there's some good things about it, and then there's just some bad things about it. I try not to add paranormal groups anymore. A lot of people contact me almost on a daily basis to look at their paranormal photos, and a lot of it is just dust orbs, insects, hair in the lens. I'm tired of breaking people's hearts. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the truth about their paranormal photos, that, there's a lot of false positives causing that photograph. And I've seen legitimate orbs. I've seen legitimate photographs that are paranormal, but it's extremely rare for that to happen. And it's almost a curse, because I don't want to turn these people away and ignore their request to look at their photos. But I'm also very honest, and a lot of people know that about me. I'm probably one of the most honest people on earth, and I will tell you what I think.
I would prefer that. I mean, like but I'm different. I'm a researcher, and I want to
Yeah.
know facts. Like, and if I give something to somebody, say, "Well, that ain't shit," you're like, "Oh, well, all right, well, now to the next one," because I want to
Yeah.
find that piece that's good. But I get what you're saying. People can be divisive almost. They're like, "What?" And they'll get mad at you for telling them it's not real. That's
It
just
happens.
wild.
It just comes with education. They're just uneducated, And in the very beginning, I too thought that a dust orb was a spirit. I didn't know that dust can fly in front of a camera lens and get lit up by a flash and look like a spirit light. You don't know these things, and you try to subtly teach them or send them a link to a website that explains everything, and then they get but my dog died that week. That week I took the picture, and we know it's the dog. Okay, sorry about your dog.
One thing we ask everybody that comes on that's part of the paranormal community, where it's a theory, where ghosts come from or how they get here, in a sense, to, well, like there's a veil. Some people think that they come from some other side and they pierce that veil. If you could not pinpoint, but what is your belief on how and or why these entities are here?
I've learned a lot from a mentor that had a near-death experience, and she's now a Reiki master. And she talked to me a lot about the different levels. Once we die, there's different levels, and kind of compare it to like Patrick Swayze in that scene in Ghost where he's trying to pluck the penny, but he doesn't quite get it. He's not quite strong yet, and then finally he's like, "Arr!" And then he pows the penny and it goes moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we die, we go to different things. I do firmly believe that we do stick around for about 3 days. I I said goodbye to my cousin who was about my age. She died from MS. I dedicated my book to her, and she said, "For 3 days, I'm going to be a wolf." Okay, Tressa, you're going to be a wolf. That she said, "I'm going to be," and she knew as she lay there dying that she was going to be here for 3 days, and that she could choose what kind of animal she wanted to be. My friend who had the near-death experience for 3 days saw the sister of her ghost who had just died of breast cancer, and the ghost was sitting in the backyard in the garden on a stone repenting for 3 days. So I'm beginning to think that's limbo. That's the 3 days where you get to go over your thoughts and your guilt and your anything you want to let go. That's your time right there. Now, certain ghosts cross over and never come back. I have a very, very close friend that passed. We had a pact. She was going to come visit me. It's been 6 years, nothing. She could be in her little happy heaven place. That's where I call it. Some ghosts, especially ones that have died traumatically, are stuck here because they don't even know they've passed, or they're afraid to pass on, afraid to go towards the light. They don't know which way to go. And I don't know what they see because we've all been poisoned by too many bad movies, but they're afraid. I've been told that a lot of spirits that are here are afraid to pass on because they think they're going to go to hell. They don't know what's going to happen when they pass through that doorway, if it's heaven or hell. They're scared. They just want to stay where it's comfortable. So you have a bunch of different theories floating around there. There's also I know some very close personal friends that on very special occasions, whether it's going to be the birth of a baby or the death of a family member or something as joyous as a wedding, they'll see a blue light in the hallway and they know that their mother's about to visit, and they'll see a blue light and an apparition of the mother. Why is she coming on certain occasions? we don't know, but she is here to either warn us or celebrate with us, and then she goes back. So, I think some are over there in a happy place and they can choose to come back and visit. I still firmly believe that some people just want to be reborn and do this all over again, for another life experience. They've either learned enough in their lifetime that they're going to do what they want, or they haven't learned enough and then they're sent back because there's still more to learn. So we've got like 6 different theories floating around here,
I think that they all have their own credible, like their own credible, like that own credible thinking is, should I say? They all make sense, to me
Yeah.
anyway, because I look at it from all the different angles, and that makes sense. We got a comment from Dennis Worth, and he says, "Who's your favorite local comic?"
There's some guy that doesn't live that far from me. His name is he makes incredible steak roll-ups. Believe it or not, these things are to die for. His name is Dennis Worth. What a coincidence.
It would only make sense, right? It would only make sense. Somebody else said cupcake. Denny Mac said cupcake.
I own
just
a
some
cupcake.
fun stuff.
So
That's right. The cakery. Duh.
Denny, I love Denny. Him and I go back to college. He taught me everything I know about computers. The poor kid, all free of charge. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub. But he would always come over to that haunted condo and teach me how to use my Mac computer that I put. It was the first time I ever used a credit card, $2,400 to buy a Mac computer. And he taught me how to use it. He's a good egg.
That's awesome. Yeah, computers are difficult. I mean, I'm versed in it, but it's still hard for me sometimes. I'm like, how do I do this? I have to ask people too. So you're not alone in that boat. And I'm actually projecting programming through computer. So it's, kind of like, oh, all right. But so, I mean, we've talked about a lot.
Got an awesome hole. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
He's got an awesome metal detecting spot for me. So as soon as hunting season's over, him and I are going to go digging. And no one's going to know about it.
I've been metal detecting, but I have to get a real one for myself because I am so game to get into it. I've been reading about it, everything. As soon as I saw it in the bio, I said, wow, okay. All right. I love it. I like that.
I will send you to my guy and I will get you, I'm going to get you some advice on the metal detector that you should pick up and what else you need with it. And I'll get you going. I will talk.
Awesome. I appreciate that because you know what? I was watching The Curse of Oak Island. That's what really sparked me when they were finding all that stuff in the first season. When they had that, they had some guy. Now they have some specific guy who does it, and I love History Channel too. But to me, that was just like, oh man, I love it. It's so good.
I've watched every ancient aliens, every episode of every history show. I mean, COVID is really, when I got laid off from my job, it's just been like TV. I put on 1,600 pounds. I just watch TV.
You and me both. Are you kidding me? Before we got locked in, I was like 180 pounds. Nice. Now I'm like 205. It's getting out of control, and I was working. I was working overnights and I was lifting boxes and stuff like that. I was working in a warehouse. So I was getting big too, but now I'm just, I'm weak and it's bad. But I did watch a lot of TV and off times, but I delved a lot into the research and it really gave me a perspective on a lot of things, I do a lot of political analyzing too. And something I try not to bring here, no. I try and I do it. I do separate shows for that because some people aren't into that, but where I started, like I said, was ufology, and I've done a lot of different types of news programs that didn't dictate anything that was mainstream. There was a section of new paranormal stuff, a section it's called Full Spectrum Universe News. So it's got paranormal, ufology, a little bit of conspiracy in it, some history and some science, all new stuff, and astronomy. I love astronomy and space and things like that. But yeah, it was something different. I thought people really needed to see news that wasn't the same thing they saw on their TV, That's what I thought. So we got about 5 minutes left. And one thing I want you to do is I want you to give the people a message from your heart, something that you just want to, doesn't matter what it's about. I just want you to tell the people a message from you to them. That's usually what we do at the end of the show.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be
If I have a
profound.
message to say, it's not gonna be profound. Just take care of each other. It's a hard time. Be easy on people that want to wear a mask because we're doing everything we can to be safe. Some of us are high risk, including myself, and we just don't want to get sick and die. So everybody just be careful out there. Don't be stupid. Just as much as you don't want to, just be responsible and just show some respect for some of us that just have to get through this. And everybody be safe.
I completely agree with that. And I couldn't have said it better myself, actually. But Shannon, I want to really thank you for coming on. I thought that this interview was incredible. This is one of the best shows we've done so far. We had a great time. I
really
hope you
enjoyed
come. I hope you come back. I'd love to catch up again and bring a couple people on, and we'll all just go into a round table and talk. But like I said, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you here. I'm definitely a fan, and I will be a fan. And when I start doing conventions, I'm going to call you, and I want you to come sign some autographs.
I'll send something to you anyway. Send me a message after the show. I'll get something out in the mail to you.
I appreciate that so much. That's so awesome. You're amazing. But thank you so much for coming. I want to thank everybody out there in the audience. You guys are incredible. I couldn't do it without you. Please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, Full Spectrum Universe. If you'd like what you see here, we have a group that we delve in an exchange of information, an exchange of knowledge, stuff that you're not going to see in the mainstream. So there's a Full Spectrum Universe group where this is the greatest information exchange on the internet today. So please like, subscribe, share, show us some love. I put all of Shannon's Instagram and Twitter and Facebook in the comment section. So if you want to follow her, please do so. She's an amazing person. I think we've done a great job here today. And I just want to thank you again, Shannon, and to everybody out there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shannon. You too. It was great.